It seems like it's been 40 weeks since you got 40 winks. Your back pain? Unbearable. Tossing, turning, trying to find that pain-free position. And that's the moment you realize you can't spend another waking moment putting off treatment.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for spine care, with a ton of surgical and non-surgical treatments for back pain. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better, the Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This podcast, episode 710, Trainer Talk, Strength Training as We Age with Josh and Nic.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This podcast with Amanda Valentine.
Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This podcast. I'm Amanda Valentine. Trainer Talk with a group of trainers today, including myself, Josh and Nic. Hi, fellas.
Hello.
Hi, Amanda.
And normally I just do this with you, Josh, but I brought my questions today. So, Nic, you're going to get in on me asking you some wild questions.
Goody.
Yeah. Before we get into the topic of strength training, resistance training, or just training in general for the aging population, we will get to the topic, but it's important for me to do things that are fun for me, which is put people in awkward situations with awkward questions. So I have this awesome game called Icebreaker Deeper Talk, Nic. Are you the look of fear on your face right now?
I've heard some of the questions you've asked in the past, and yeah, I'm a little nervous.
Well, the other game, the sweet and spicy truth game, I think is more controversial than this one.
Okay.
But this has different categories, and I'll let you choose, Nic, between dreams, life lessons, exposed, courage, beliefs, and self-awareness.
Let's go courage.
Oh, that's a good one. All right, that is a blue card. I am going to use some. Oh my God!
I'm so happy that you're a part of this.
Oh God! What do you want to know about someone that you've been scared to ask?
Like a real life situation?
Yeah.
You're talking to me?
Yeah. Is there any situation with anybody in your life that you wanted to know something about someone and you've been afraid to ask? And what is it that you want to know? Look at the look on Josh's face. Are you hyped? You want to go first?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I don't know if. I feel like that's something I'd have to really think about. Nothing's grabbing me right off the bat.
No?
The only thing that popped into my head was when I was a child. My mom used to clean houses for this lady, and her husband was in World War II. Mm-hmm. And I started talking to him about like just different things that he experienced, and that was like a topic that he just shut it down. Like he would not talk about.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, that had to be some crazy experience.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But that was just one thing that, because it's just history. I like to learn and know different things. And as a kid, I just fired questions away, and he was just like, nope. He just shut it down. And I was like, okay.
I think generally in my family, we're pretty open with each other. So I don't know that there's any like crazy mysteries that I am, like you saying, like get shut down for if I ever bring up. You know what I mean?
Well, I found a better question.
Okay.
What compliments do you struggle to believe?
Like if somebody's giving me a compliment?
Mm-hmm, that you're just like, no, I don't believe that. About yourself?
I struggle sometimes thinking that I'm working hard enough.
Okay.
Like I'm doing enough. I have this air about me like I always could be doing more to aid in the situation regardless of what it is.
So if I said, Nic, you're a hard worker, you wouldn't believe me?
I would say that, I think I am a hard worker, but I always feel like there's something else that I could be doing to make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one that is like, okay, dude, that's it. That's all we can do. Just shut it down. Go home. Have time with family.
I'm a fixer. I like to try to fix things.
Yeah.
I guess, especially for other people, I like try to fix situations for others.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes telling me that, okay, there's nothing else you can do, that I have a hard time with that one. So
okay.
I don't know. That's exactly what you were going for, but
I mean, that's whatever, however you want to interpret it. I didn't make the game.
I feel exposed now.
Not courageous. It was a courage card.
Yeah.
What about you, Josh? What compliments do you struggle to believe?
I would say it would just be like knowledge of the human body. Like I feel, there's just the human body is so intricate and there's so much that you can learn. And I feel like I've learned a lot, but there's so much more that you could learn. So whenever somebody's like, oh, you know a lot about the human body, I'm like, yeah, but there's still so much more that you could learn.
Gotcha. You just swat it away.
It's like hard to, but then when you do see other people in your field doing things that they're doing, then it's kind of like, okay, I can't hold my own in this, this conversation. So that's a one that I struggle with.
Gotcha. Mine is, I don't know, mine's on a totally different level than all of yours. Well, I struggle to accept most compliments. I don't know. I have a hard time accepting them and I have a hard time giving compliments. It just makes me feel uncomfortable, although I want to. I've made it my New Year's resolution before to give more compliments because I want to, but for some reason there's just some like weirdness about it with me. But I'd say because of like my journey and everything I've been through, I have a hard time accepting or believing any like body compliments. Like when I just like people are just being nice to me. Like you're saying that because you have like what else are you going to be like? Ooh, woof. You know what I mean? Like, like so it's like and so all of those I generally just like skirt off of like, well, yeah, you're saying that to be nice, and I don't accept it. So then it's work on myself to like say those sorts of things to myself and believe it, and that's its own journey in itself. And I think that most people don't really go down that angle of like, okay, well, but instead of getting a compliment from someone else and believing that you're only worthy based off of somebody else's opinion and you need their compliment in order to make it true, can you say that about yourself and really believe it? And that doesn't matter if anybody ever compliments you or says or even says in the negative angle, because as long as you believe it about yourself, that's all that matters. And I think that's really a hard process that takes a lot of time and focus.
It's powerful though. It's very powerful.
Yeah. It's hard work though. I cry a lot.
We should be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, on that note, let's talk about old people working out.
Aging population.
That's what I thought we agreed was aging
a gentler
population.
term, and then I had to just go in with the hard joke with old people. I don't mean old people. I mean, I joke that I'm old all the time. Old is subjective to whoever believes. I mean, if you asked a 17-year-old right now, I am like grandma status. But if you asked just my general friends, they wouldn't say that I act
Have you
old.
guys ever had that happen? Where like, you didn't, when you first realized like you're getting older? Like I'll go first. Okay. I was at the old gym and this kid came up and he was talking and he was 17, 18. And he's like, well, when I'm your age, I hope to have blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I guess I am like 10 years older than you. Yeah. It's just, you just think of it as like, well, I just graduated high school 10 years ago. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I think I've always seen it as subjective. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like even as a kid, like you were saying, 17-year-olds think that you're old. I think 17-year-olds think of themselves as getting old.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So if they feel like they're old, anybody older than them is going to be like over the hill. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I get called old all the time by some of my younger clients, and I get called young all the time for some of my older clients. I think it's just part of navigating life, I guess.
And it is all such just subjective. I know people that are in their 20s that, they're acting old. As whatever you define that as, it's like going to bed at 8:30. There's 20-year-olds that are doing that, and there's 50-year-olds that are staying out till 11:30 at night. It's all subjective person to person. So, or
even physical, like you have people that smoke and drink every night and they're partying it up like they were in college. At 27 years old, that ages you fast, and all of a sudden they're not moving, they're not eating right, and all of a sudden they hurt, and all they do is sit down and they feel like they're in pain all the time. Like I would say that 27-year-old is old.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and it's even amazing, and just at least in me and in my background, like I'm 39, but if you would have gone back 10 plus years ago and in my 20s, like my body is in way better shape. Like if you would have gone to me at 27 and been like, hey, hop up off the floor, it would have taken me a minute. And so that's where I'm young, I'm in my 20s, and here I am over 10 years later, but I can move better and I feel better. And I feel like it's weird of just like, I feel like I look much younger than I used to. You look at older pictures of me, even in high school. In high school, it looks like I was ready to retire. Like, it was just like, damn, I looked old. So it's just, I think it's kind of totally subjective and all over the place. But I guess for as far as this conversation goes, when we're going to talk about aging population and strength training and just exercise in general, it would be, I think that the age people are thinking of, like, I'm becoming middle-aged, older than that. I've, 40s, 50s, 60s. I think people are 70s, 80s are thinking, oh, well, once I hit this middle-aged thing, because even I see enough videos online of like, oh, I'm in my 30s now, so I can get to hear my knees snap, and oh, my back aches because I sneezed wrong. And you see all these kind of jokes of like, oh, I'm older now, my body is falling apart. That's just how it goes. Oh, there's no way I could go into a gym and lift heavy, or I can do the kind of exercise that those 17-year-olds are doing because I'm doing these smaller movements and I feel the aches and pains that my body didn't feel when I was that age. Would you say that's a fair way to kind of assess when we're talking about older population is the population that's like, yeah, I'm experiencing aches and pains in my body is older than it used to be. And I again, broad sweeping statement of, I quote unquote can't do the things that younger people can do, which
I would say that you can do the things that younger people do, but it's going to take you way longer to recover from those things.
Okay.
I think that's the only argument that I would attest to being true is recovery is going to take a lot longer as we get older. And that's just because systems break down. I mean, that's you can't beat that. It's just aging. I mean, that's just what it is. As we get older, certain systems just don't function as they used to in our youth.
Would you say you wouldn't even attach a number to that? It's just being intuitive and feeling your own body, of feeling like, oh man, I pushed a little hard. I need to make sure I rest longer.
Because like just what Nic was saying, like if you're smoking, drinking, not eating properly, not working out, your recovery is even less than someone of the same age as you, because you just haven't taken care of the other variables that you could take care of to help the aging process. You're kind of speeding the aging process up instead of trying to minimize the effects of aging as much as you can.
So what would you guys say if, like, say somebody is older, middle-aged plus, and they're not a former athlete, they don't have haven't gone to a gym regularly, and they're like, okay, I'm feeling all these aches and pains, I should probably do something. Then what does that process look like? I mean, what are the challenges that they're facing, and what kind of, if they came in to train with you guys, what would your plan of action be, sort of thing? Whoever wants to take that one first.
I guess first of all, it would be no different than me taking anybody else through an assessment.
Yep.
I assess them the same. I see what they're capable of in all of the main functions of the body. I listen to what their habits are. How much water are they drinking? How much alcohol are they consuming? What is their diet looking like? All of those things. The same questions I have to somebody in their mid-20s. And then you make a plan the same way. You start where they are, and, maybe they're not able to squat to a depth that your 30-year-old client can squat to, but you're still starting them in the same way. Like maybe they're starting off higher, but your plan is to still strengthen that squat pattern the same way you would strengthen somebody else's squat pattern. You just kind of assess as you go, okay, you told me you had a little bit of knee pain. You said you had a little bit of hip pain. Does this bother this? If the answer is no, then cool, we can keep strengthening this position as long as that position it looks good and they're doing it the proper way. Strengthen it, and then maybe as time goes on, remove one of the blocks and see if they can go a little deeper once they've strengthened and, the highest point that they started at, drop that a little bit lower and see if they're capable of it. Oh, it gives you pain? Okay, cool. We'll try this again in, a month or two and see how that goes. For now, let's keep squatting to this depth. But overall, I think people get this idea that because you've hit a certain age that you have to train completely differently. Yes. And I don't agree with that at all. I think everybody should start off with walking. I think everybody should be walking. Everybody should be doing some sort of mobility or stretching, and everybody should be doing some sort of strength training, regardless of your age. It's just going to potentially look differently because you had more years, as Josh put it, for your systems to break down. Or the other piece of it is the posture that we sit in, because most people are sitting all day, whether it be at work or in the car or wherever it is that you're sitting. These postures that we're sitting in, you had more years to be in these positions, which puts you in a more painful position. So it's going to take longer to get you in the correct postures that we want you to be in when you're doing certain strength exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to remember that if your body is going to adapt to whatever stimulus that you're giving it or lack thereof, right? So if you haven't given your body any sort of movement stimulus in the last 40 years, your movement's going to look different than somebody that has been doing it for 40 years or 30 years or whatever the case may be, right? Like it's just your body's going to use it or lose it. And if you haven't been using it, then chances are you're going to lose it and you're going to be in a different posture. And that's going to take a little bit longer for you to come up out of that posture because you've just had more mileage on the chassis, right? You've just went through more years of your life, and that's going to take you a little bit longer to unwind that. And it may be such a thing as you can unwind it, and it's just a managing thing, you know. But there's to Nic's point, you can't just say like, well, I hit 45 or 50 or whatever that number is in your head, and you just throw your hands up and you're like, I just can't get into the gym anymore. It's just not for me. It's like that's not true. You know, you can always adjust. You can regress, progress any exercise. It just may not look the same as like an Olympic lifter, but I don't know of any aging population that comes in and they're like, you know, I'd really like to get into some Olympic lifting.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's all subjective to whatever your goals are. And I mean, the goals as we get older are you don't want to fall. You don't want to end up in a home. You don't want to have somebody have to take care of you. You know, those are all things that you have in your wheelhouse to a degree that you can help subside by strength training and keeping your body moving.
Now, is there a way, though, that you can end up harming yourself by being an older population and just kind of going to the gym and getting after it? And I bring that up because I work out at the Y, and because it's right next to my house, and almost every single morning it's filled with just a bunch of old dudes. Like, I mean, this is just what I see, and I've been going to the Y for years now, and it's a bunch of men. I'm going to put 60, 70, 80s, and that's mostly who's in there when I'm in the gym. And they are doing some wild stuff that I'm like, they are going to hurt themselves. And that's at least my opinion, because I mean, they kind of like look like kind of frail older gentlemen that are just whipping stuff around and whacking stuff around. And I'm like, it's awesome. Like, yay, that's awesome. You're 80 and you're in the gym and you're in here moving your body. That's amazing. But I guess what I'm asking is, like, are they negating those good things because they're going in there and they're not using any sort of proper form, and they're doing stuff that it looks like that you could jack a 17-year-old up with?
Right.
And, you know what I mean? So it's like, so at what point does it become a detriment if you're like, yes, I want to be healthy, I'm going to the gym, but then you're also doing things incorrectly? That's
when you should get a personal trainer.
Well, and I think what you just said hit it right on the head, right? You said you could jack up a 17-year-old that way. Like, it's just like I was saying before, it's no different. It's just you have more years working against you.
Yeah.
You have a different hormone balance, so you're more likely to injure yourself if you're doing things incorrectly. But think about that 17-year-old that does it incorrectly for the next 40, 50 years.
Right.
Yeah.
They're going to be in the same boat.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, they've only done things incorrectly for 2-3 years, not 30, 40 years, you know. And
well, can you even unwind that then? If you've been doing that incorrect movement for that long and you hired a personal trainer and the personal trainer is like, no, we need to do it this way, are you too in that rut and ingrained in that pattern to listen and change just because you've been doing it so long? Because people don't like change.
For sure. And I think that's the part where it becomes more of, you know, quote unquote fixing it, or you're just managing it as well as you can. Corrective exercises or fixing the body or whatever is going to be how much time you're going to put outside of just your gym time, that you're, are you sitting correctly? Are you walking correctly? Like, are all those things come into play when it comes into like correcting the body? Mm-hmm. And to your point, I've always done it this way. This is just the way that it is usually the conversation that we're going to get into with an aging population until there's pain involved, right? Usually when there's pain involved, that's when people are more apt to listen and try to take, whatever protocol that they can to implement to get themselves out of pain. So yeah, I mean, it's subjective person to person, because it's going to be how much time and effort and energy are they going to be able to put into outside things that they need to be doing to help correct them, not just, your half hour of PT or your hour of strength training or whatever the case may be that you're dedicating to helping your body, move better.
Yeah. Well, in both of your experience, I mean, you've both been trainers for 10 plus years, correct?
I haven't been quite 10. I've been 5.
Oh, okay.
So,
but you train little kids for...
Yeah, I trained kids 7 years before that.
Yeah. Okay. But so whenever you see those cases in your history of being a trainer, with somebody of an older population came in and was interested in training, and is that an issue that you'd see often? Is that one of the major roadblocks?
Yeah, I've seen it both ways. I've seen people reduce their pain and almost seem like they're completely retrained, if you will. My first client ever actually was upper 60s. I think she turned 70 as I was training her. I trained her for a few years. She was a dancer prior to, and not knocking dancers, but they do teach them to move in a very specific position, which long term can be very bothersome for a lot of pieces of the body, including the hips and knees. And sure enough, the way that she had been squatting in her ballet, how she had been taught to squat all her life, was very knee dominant, very quad dominant, not a whole lot of hips or glutes involved in the motion. And her knees hurt all the time. And when I first saw her squat, I was like, oh my God, this is my first client. I'm like, I don't even know what to do with this, right? But slowly but surely, like I was saying before, we started off high, taught her to push her hips back a little bit more, taught her to stay kind of on her heels a little bit more. And slowly but surely, she corrected the pattern and her knee pain went away. So I've had that side of things where I've seen that firsthand. And I've also seen situations where, people are very kyphotic, which is where the upper part of your back rounds a little bit too much. And, you tell somebody, hey, I want you to get an extension and show them, the stretch or exercise that you want them to do every day. You don't have to do it a lot. Just, I want you to do this like brushing your teeth in the morning and at night, 1 or 2 minutes a day. And, they do it while they're with you. They don't do it when they're not watching, when they're not holding their hand, and you don't see any improvements. But what I'm hoping is happening is that, half hour or hour or however long it is that they're with me throughout the week, it's me helping them not create a worse scenario. Is what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing, is try to get them to stop doing the things that's causing the pain or the imbalance or whatever the case may be, because that's what is further facilitating and ingraining that movement pattern in their body, and then dosing it with the correct movement or whatever the case may be to help them get from point A to point B. And then, the bodies are pretty cool. It's pretty resilient. It adapts with the stimulus that it's given. I mean, the fact that we get in crappy posture and we have bone spurs and we have, I can never pronounce that word, that dogward's hump or whatever.
Oh yeah.
It's like your body is laying more bone down in that area to create stability. Like that's pretty cool. It's not attractive
awesome.
looking,
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's fascinating that the body does that. But on the flip side of that, the body will do the other as well if you, stop letting your arch collapse and do the foot exercises that you need to build your arch back up. But those aren't the sexy exercises. They're not the fun exercises. So people are like, oh, these are, and they're so time consuming, right? It's like eating vegetables. You don't eat broccoli and you're like, ooh, six pack, Yahtzee.
Yeah.
You know, but if you eat pizza, you feel good, right? If you go for a long run or whatever exertion exercise that you do, you have that instant endorphin rush and you feel good. Well, you don't get that from sliding a towel, you know, and gripping the ground with your foot. You just get like, okay, is this doing anything? And it may take a longer period of time for you to get the results that you're looking for. But, you know, if you just stay with it, it's pretty amazing what the body can retrain itself to do.
So if somebody is, because I did have a question that somebody wrote me on Instagram asking me about this, of like, well, what exercises should I be doing then? Of like, again, I want to kind of reiterate your point, Nic, of saying, well, then you can just do what everybody else does. And like, you know, there's no like barrier unless, you know, like the Olympic lift sort of thing. But if somebody is going from 0 to whatever, so then we're walking and we're doing some stretching and stuff like that. But as far as like walking into a gym and strength training goes, I mean, and you don't have a personal trainer, would you just start off with some body weight exercise sort of stuff? Or what would be the progression, and how would you build out a program for someone that's, you know, say older and has not exercised in a long time, but wants to come in and get after it?
I think that everybody should kind of start by shooting for the main functions of the body. And if you look at it in, I guess it's 6 different patterns that we say that the human body does best, and that's squat, hinge, which is could be a lot of different things, but the most common one that people think of is like a deadlift, lunge. Did I ever say that? Or say squat? Squat, lunge, hinge, and then an upper body push, an upper body pull, and then a carry or gait, walking. I think those are the most valuable things for anybody at any age to train. Now, as a trainer, that would be our conversation and seeing where you receive pain. And that's our kind of talk and decision to figure out how deep you should be going, or maybe you're not quite ready for this. I see some imbalances here. Let's work on, you know, some core stuff before we take you back to that. But as a general, I guess, law of fitness, what I would say is work towards those functions of the body.
Okay. Now, in your experience, for both of you being trainers in training, I mean, this is going to be true of just any human, but I mean, as part of, you know, a healthier lifestyle, but speaking to older populations, how much, you know, we're talking about the body movement and aches and pains and all of that, but how much of a factor is nutrition and sleep and, you know, relaxation and all these other things that are important elements in all of this? Do you see any sort of difference in those things in older people versus younger people, that they're more apt to put more time and energy in those, or less apt to do that? Or does it not even matter? It's just people are people.
I think people are people, and, you know, you're going to have some people that are just set in their ways and, no, I've done it this way all the time. And those people are just, but again, that could be 30, 35-year-olds, right? Like I've know plenty of people, oh, I've done this for 30 some years. And it's like, dude, you're only 30.
Yeah.
Like you can change that, you know,
Yeah.
But it's just, some people have that, you know, this is just who I am and it is what it is kind of thing. And they just don't want to change any part of that. And I don't think you're going to resonate with those people if you try to suggest any kind of difference, you know. But I think that there's definitely validity in all of the variables that go into health and fitness. You know, it's not just strength training, it's strength training, and then how are you recovering, and how was your nutrition, and how's your water intake, and are you taking time to just chill out, or are you stressed to the max, you know, that kind of thing. All of that stuff factors into what it is that you should be doing on a daily basis. And I think that is a cool thing that we're seeing in our industry, is that more people are becoming intuitive with their bodies and getting to understand their bodies. You know, I feel like in the past it was just kind of like, and this is an issue that we run into with the aging population is we just drive it till the wheels fall off, right? And then we just go to the doc and the doc gives us a pill and we're good to go, right?
Yeah.
And we're starting to realize like, yes, there is a need for medicine, but there's also a need for self-realization and being intuitive to our bodies and saying like, oh, well, if I just don't drink as much, I sleep better. And if I sleep better, I'm less irritable the next day. So maybe I should do more of that, you know?
Yeah.
I think that there's a shift in that, and that's kind of cool to see, but sorry,
Yeah.
that was a tangent.
No, it was not.
I think the recovery aspect is huge when those things are all kind of dialed in too, right? Like we were talking about in the older population having a harder time recovering from certain exercises or certain activities that they may have done when they were younger and didn't have an issue with before. You can do whatever, right? Like if your body's going to do it, you can take it to the house, but like, are you going to be able to recover from that? And the answer is if you're getting 7-8 hours of sleep a night, if you're eating the way you should be eating, if you're getting proper hydration, if you're checking all these boxes, then you're going to be able to recover way quicker and way better than if you didn't, if you were just driving yourself into the floor. And that's going to dictate your results moving forward. Like you got somebody that just drives it to the ground and then eats like crap and never sleeps, well enough, then they might not see any results. And you got somebody that's doing the same exercise program and is dialing all of the other pieces in, and they're seeing great results.
And that goes for any age group.
Right.
I mean, that's across the board.
Yeah.
Well, as we're talking about that, bring up if somebody is struggling with nutrition and also with hormonal issues, then you can check out my friend Sarah and Team Fit With Me. She works with all sorts of gut health conditions, thyroid diseases, PCOS, hormonal dysfunction, helps you have a good relationship with your food and understanding about high nutritious food and, not just putting things in categories of good or bad food, but really give you good information on what you should be eating and how you should be resting and how you should be hydrating yourself. So if you're interested in having a health coach, I would recommend Sarah. And you can get 10% off month 1 of all packages, plans, and add-on services. You can just go to teamfitwithme.com/pound this for that deal. And that's, if somebody's struggling with food or accountability, I would highly recommend her. But as far as training goes in person with you guys, I know that's what, we do here at Cincy 360 Fitness too, is when we have a client in person is you have those discussions with people of how are you eating? How are you drinking? It's just, I think that aging population or not, it's hard. It's like when they're in the gym here and they're in here for a total of an hour or 90 minutes a week. It's like, well, you're out in the world doing those things like you were bringing up earlier, Nic, of like, hey, make these exercises part of your routine. And if you don't, which I'm sure every physical therapist on the planet would be like, oh my God, feel my pain of if you just kind of incorporate these things and consistently in your daily life. And I think that's just kind of the key. And there's only so much that you can do. And I think that's frustrating. I mean, just speaking for me, and I'm speaking for you guys, of where if you were dealing with somebody that is older and they're complaining that their aches and pains and they're coming into the gym, which is awesome to do those things. And then if they're not moving forward all of the time and it's just these small little windows and then they still are feeling that pain, I think it's just people just give up so easily. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, is so just heartbreaking because it's not that it can't be done. It's that, if that's something, I think this is true of anything. If it's something that you want for yourself, you're going to have to put a level of time and focus in. And like you were saying, when you're older, you're going to have to put a little bit more time and effort in thinking about those things and also recovery. And I think it's just a little bit more you kind of have to add on to it depending on, again, your background. I don't really know if you guys have a comment on that, but I just think that that's so much of the process of, and I'm 100% guilty too, and consider me old or not, of I'm in pain. Oh, we'll do these things. And I'm like, oh, but that's boring.
Yeah.
Well, so to that point, I heard this thing on YouTube and it just, I don't know, it stuck with me. It said, change happens habit by habit. Good habits have an immediate cost and a delayed response. Bad habits have an immediate response and a delayed cost. Mm. So I think that fits with what we're talking about here is like, it's fruits and vegetables aren't the yummiest of foods for people to eat, you know,
Yeah.
but more vegetables than fruit, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But pizza, you know, it gives you that immediate like, you know, it just
Comfort food.
Yeah, it's and it's the same with like corrective exercises and all the exercises that are good for you to do, but they're not the fun euphoric exercises, you know, and it just, but if you continuously do just the fun exercises, yeah, it feels good in the moment, but it's going to have a really build up, you know, devastation to your body over time. Whereas if you're giving yourself a little bit of love throughout the day, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but doing that over time is going to have a better impact on your body in the future. So,
and I think that it kind of blows my mind sometimes. And I guess the reason I'm thinking of this is because I am a trainer and I know intuitively the way my body feels. But I think of what I do all day walking around doing what I do. I'm pretty intuitive the way I'm picking things up, walking around the gym, helping people out. I still feel very compressed at the end of the day. I still feel, you know, aches and pains and those types of things at the end of the day. And the first thing I want to do is correct it. The first thing I want to do is get, you know, when I go home, I want to lay on the floor and I want to stretch my back. And I guess my thought on that is think about all of the people that are older than I am that don't understand that don't, every time they have little aches and pains, don't get down on the floor and start stretch.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't mean you're never going to feel any sort of pain, but if I know what's going to correct it and I do it immediately when I feel it, and somebody is never doing that, it really kind of gets me thinking, like, is everybody just suffering all the time?
they're just in pain all the time. I mean, you think about it, you go from sitting to sitting to sitting to sitting, and you're never just like laying, like even on the floor or laying over a Swiss ball or whatever the case may be, to just like open your body up. Just basically think about a repetitive motion that you do over and over again, do the opposite of that and it'll help you. Right. That's cross training essentially. You know, so
well, I think that's one of the easiest things that you can do if you have the ability to get down on and just lay down on the floor on your back. That's one of the easiest things to tell somebody to do that you don't need a whole lot of cueing for, is just lay on your back on the floor. It's a flat surface. It's going to decompress your back, and it feels great. Now, some people will get down on the floor and they'll feel like, oh, it's a little bit too much of a stretch. Yep. I have heard people say that before. So, you know, do
knees, bend your knees.
Bend your knees, towards the ceiling, and ease into it. Like, do it for 30 seconds, then do it for 45 seconds, then do it for a minute, and slowly start allowing yourself to get to the point where you can lay for a few minutes on the floor and just allow yourself to decompress.
Yeah.
And use aids. I think that's one thing that, like, as a society, we feel like we're like a bad human if we have to use something to support us, right? Like a yoga block or a stick for balancing extra. No, I don't want to use that. And then they're like falling all over the place. And it's like, no, just use the aid to help you get better at the exercise, and then slowly remove the aid as you get stronger. Don't just think that you're automatically going to continuously drive the car faster and it's going to go into alignment. That's not how it works. You got to ease the body into it. It shouldn't be, balance exercises shouldn't be like hold your breath and try to, just force it into this thing. It just doesn't work that way. Use an aid to help you get into the position.
So both of you personally, I mean, you see this with clients as trainers, but like, how does it work when you see this like within like your own family and people in your personal life that are obviously aging, and you have all of this information? How does that go?
It's so hard. I don't know about you, but talking to people, it only takes, one conversation to find out if somebody's interested or not. You see somebody in pain, you see somebody that's, obese or, has terrible habits and are feeling the repercussions for it. And you try to offer advice because you don't want them to be in pain. You care for this individual.
Yeah.
You're not trying to be a jerk about it. You're just like, look, let me help you. Just come in. Let's just have a conversation about things you can do to slowly, make a few steps towards a healthier life. And it's hard because nobody, some people might take you up on the offer of, oh yeah, show me a few exercises that I can do for this. And then, next time you say, hey, have you done any of those exercises I showed you?
Well, I'm busy with blah, 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 blah.
Right. Yeah. It's always that. I don't know.
Oh,
Sounds
yeah.
like you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Excuse after excuse. I mean, everybody, it's not easy. Everybody wants this thing to be easy. It's not. It's learning your body. Like, this is the most complex machine that we have. And, everybody just wants it to be like this quick fix. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. Like, you have to, hell, once you figure out how you think it works, you realize how much you don't know about it, you know? And that's what, it makes it frustrating, but it's also just enjoy the journey. And I think that it becomes easier to swallow of, it's like just drinking water, eating fruits and vegetables, or just laying on the ground, or, just rolling, just crawling around with your kids. Like, all of that stuff is going to have a huge impact on your life, and it's going to make the quality of life better. It's just, I don't know. Everybody thinks that it's just going to be like this 1.5 hour session or this 1 hour session that's going to have this like aha thing, and it just doesn't work that way. And it just sucks that, the things that cause so much detriment to our health are the things that make us feel good in the moment, and it's way easier to sell that to somebody than like, hey, you're going to do this and it's going to suck and you're not going to like it, and you need to do this for 2 years before you see any kind of benefit from it. But, have fun with that.
But I like that you brought up aha moment, because I think a lot of people, and I will definitely bring this into the weight loss arena, I think people are waiting for a different kind of aha moment. Like, I went to pick up my grandkid and I couldn't. And that's what's going to be like the spark that makes me do all this. Or there's going to be that one thing of like, I caught myself in a mirror and I'm like, oh my God, and I want to change. And then, but not everybody has that. And I think a lot of people are waiting to have this spark moment, because when they hear people tell stories of their own journey and their stories, sometimes they can think of like, oh, this was an aha moment for me. And they're just waiting for theirs to show up that will somehow magically put them into gear. And those moments don't always happen, or there's just some where you would think one. Like, an example is my mom, who's in her 60s and overweight. And she came to visit me when I lived in Oregon. So this was years ago now, like almost 7-8 years ago. And she could not, we were going to a national park and she needed boots because it snowed there. It was in the mountains. And she didn't bring boots with her, and I gave her some of mine, and she couldn't bend over to put them on. Like, I had to get on the floor and put my mom's shoes on for her, which was a moment for me where I'm like, well, this is a lot of reality here. Like, I don't like this, but I'm like thinking, would that be a moment for her? Like, my own daughter has to put shoes on me because I can't bend over to put shoes on. And it was not.
60s seems pretty young for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When people just laugh it off, well, it's just getting older. That's just the way it is. And it's like, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
I know that's easier said than done, because we all, to that point of that aha moment, like, I don't know that exists. Like, some people have it, and that's great. But for the most part, if you wake up and it's like, well, today sucks. Like, I'm going to minimize the amount of damage that I do today.
Yeah.
Tomorrow you wake up and you're like, okay, today's a good day. I'm going to put in some, and you just try to mitigate the amount of damage that you do when you have bad days. And, you just got to put in the work. You got to put in the effort. It just, that's all it boils down to. It's not.
Even when you don't want to. I think it's the important part.
Science. It's just like, yes, do I want to breathe on a daily basis? Like focus on breathing. No, it's boring. I like to lift heavy things a lot. I like to push myself. I like to sweat. Like, laying on my back and breathing into my belly is the dumbest thing that I've ever done. But it helps my back. So you just got to do it. It's just, do I like vegetables? No, but you got to eat them. Like, it's just.
You talk about that a lot, Josh.
Vegetables?
Yeah, you really have an anger.
I don't like vegetables. I don't like them. But, they're good for you. So they say.
Micronutrients are important.
They are. And that's what I mean, is everything is important. And even the stuff that you don't like to do is important. And that's the stuff that you should probably focus on more than the things that you like to do, because the things that you like to do are probably getting you into the trouble that you're in.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I like to do is I like to feel good as I'm aging.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the mindset you have to tap into. Yep. You have to tap into this journey. This is going to help me in the long run. This is going to support a better quality of life. This is going to help me play with my grandchildren. This is going to help me, potentially see my great grandchildren. You know what I mean? Like, I think these are the things we need to be focused on rather than what's going to give me the fastest result and reverse this pain right now. It's okay. Well, this is going to be a journey because it's been a journey to get to where you are.
Yeah.
If you're, 70 years old and you've been in this position or doing things a certain way for 70 years, you're probably not going to ever 100% reverse what you've done, but you could potentially prevent it from getting worse and maybe reduce some pain out of it too. But I think, everybody, like Josh was saying, everybody's looking for that quick fix. We just got to look at it as a lifelong journey of just trying to be a little bit better.
And I would also say that I'm not opposed to this because I think I've been fueled by this a lot of my life, that I think it sounds mean or bad to look at something and be like, well, I don't want to be that or that person or what they're doing, so I'm going to work hard to do that. But that's, looking at my mom of like, I have to put her shoes on for her of like, I don't want that to be me. And same thing with my grandma. I can't remember exactly what was wrong, but basically they told her like something was wrong with her knee. And they're like, just get up and walk around. Just walk around the house. Like that was the only thing. And she refused to do it. And she had half her leg amputated because she refused to walk, just walk. Wow. And things like that. And, that's just my immediate family. And for me to look at that, and I think that's why it's like, okay to be like, it sounds mean to use somebody as an example of I don't want to be them, but I'm like, but I don't want that to be me, and that could easily be me.
100%
Those are all my choices, and I think that it's okay to see those kind of examples in your life, and you can, like you were bringing up earlier, Nic, of like I can offer my best suggestion, and we can have a conversation. If they want nothing to do with it, that's fine. But if my takeaway from that is like I want to help them, I want to take them out of pain, and they refuse it. It's just a lesson for me to be like, but I don't want that for myself, and I don't want my loved ones around me to have to feel like they have to do that for me. And if that's what it takes to fuel you, to give you that consistency and put those things in your life, then I say, then if that's the fuel, then use it. And but it just feels like, sounds bad to say that out
whatever
loud.
Whatever creates your inspiration, you know what I mean? Like, I think as humans, I think we're always, try to not be judgmental, but at the same point, I think it's really good to look around at the people that are your closest and find out what it is, the things, qualities about somebody that you like, that you could potentially see yourself adopting.
Yeah.
And what are the qualities of somebody that you don't like, that you know that you never want to be that way? I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. I think that's where, and I've been on, just to talk about just life in general. I was on like this panel once of like all these like powerful and important women, and they were like, who's your mentor? And all of them were going through these just other amazing people in life and their mentors and whatever. And I was just like, I don't know, man. I feel like I learned most of my lessons from seeing like, I don't want to be that. And like having like almost the flip side mentor of like, I learned of like, seeing these things around me of like, but I don't want to live that way, of like almost just learning how to be mentored by the flip side of it. Does that make sense? And I feel like that's not a topic that gets discussed a ton because it's not as beautiful and flowery as like, I see you like Oprah is my mentor or whoever else, of somebody to look up to. Of sometimes it's not always someone to look up to. It's to look at like, is that the life I want? Like you said, like the people around me. And if it's not, then do what you need to do to live the life that you want. And it's just not as pretty. It's not as Instagrammable. But I think that that's an important lesson, especially as we're talking about aging populations, of seeing the people around you that are the same age as you and their habits and where they're at and what's going on with their life and their bodies, to sometimes be like, ugh, I love them, but God, I don't want to struggle to get out of a chair. And so I need to do something for me because I'm learning of who I want to be versus who I don't want to be. So I just wanted to make sure I brought up that point next. I think that's important.
Well, it's easy to do because there are so many people in the aging population that do just allow themselves to just kind of fizzle out. And I mean, you talk about the aha moment. Like I had an aha moment when I was in college. I remember kind of trotting down a set of steps, and I just kind of thought to myself as I was doing this, I don't want to be able to move the way I'm moving right now.
Right.
Like I always want to be able to do what I'm doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times as a kid. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, you're fine.
Like it's just you hear that all the time. Well, just wait till you're 30. Wait till you're 40. Wait till you're 50. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna put the proactive steps in as much as I can to mitigate that effect. You know.
Well, with that being said, too, I think it is important for the aging population to hear that, you know, don't put these thoughts into the youth's head. Mm-hmm. Like, don't make them assume that when they get a certain age that they are going to start fizzling out the way that everybody around you, or maybe you have or feel like you are. You know, that's not going to help them. So, you know, try to use it as if you do feel like you're kind of getting into that position, feel like look, like this is what's happening to me. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you're doing X, Y, Z, and set the example. Like start, even if you've never, you know, picked up anything before, you know, start strength training, start walking, do something to try to mentor the future generations to continue what they're doing. Because I think it's very inspirational when you see an older adult that is doing what they need to do in order to try to keep themselves from kind of falling off.
Definitely. Well, I know here at Cincy 360 Fitness, I mean, all ages are obviously welcome, but there are definitely spots for aging population, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like, you know, the aging population usually has middle of the days kind of open, which is usually a trainer's middle of the days kind of open. So, you know, scheduling is a little bit easier, and, you know, and again, it's just trying to speak to the population that needs to be spoken to, right? I feel like it's almost like we discredit that conversation to the aging population because it's like, well, they've wrote themselves off, so we write them off. You know, it's like, it just doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Nic was saying, you just assess the body, and the body is what the body is, and then give it the information that you can give it and see what it does with it.
So if somebody's interested for themselves, or maybe their parents or somebody in their family that they're like, okay, well, yeah, let's look into getting a personal trainer. Specifically, if they're in Cincinnati, would they just shoot an email to info@cincy360fitness.com?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Just shoot an email, and then we start everybody with the orientation, and it's free. So come in, get the orientation, and then we 3 sessions for 45 after that. Go from there.
Any other thoughts? Nothing?
I mean, there's a bunch of topics that we could cover still on just the effects of strength training with everybody, much less, you know, definitely older adults. I mean, we even cover like bone density.
Right.
I mean,
the actual effects of it.
The amount of people that lose balance because they have less strength, and then they end up falling and have osteoporosis, so they end up breaking a hip, and then they can't survive the surgery.
Yep.
It's too high of a number. So, you know, if we can get you, number one, balancing better because you have better strength on one leg at a time. If we can get you, if you do fall, having higher bone density so you don't break your hip when you do fall, or even if you do need to have that surgery and you have a higher strength level to start, you're better off than if you're frail and weak going into the surgery to start.
Yeah.
Boom. That's a mic drop. That's it. That caps it off right there. I mean.
All right. Well, that's it then.
That's
Bye,
awesome.
guys. Thank you. See ya.
AmandaValentineBites.com